All right, just who am I here? My name's Julie Millen. I'm an instructional leader in teaching and learning with technology in the Toronto District School Board. For those of you that don't know, the Toronto District School Board has 350,000 students in it. We have 20 families of schools, and each family of schools has 20 to 25 schools within it. In my role in the TDSB, there are 3 of us. So supporting all those schools, 1 secondary and 2 elementary. So we're a little busy, but it's fun. I'm pretty socially connected. So if you Google my name, you will find me. You'll find my Pinterest stuff. You will find my LinkedIn. You will find Twitter. You will find. I'm pretty public. My Google Plus profile. The only thing that's not public is Facebook. I hope. If you find it, something, let me know. The other thing I'm going to mention right up front is that I'm a mom. I have 2 awesome kids. Matthew is in grade 5, boy on an IEP for writing. And I have a girl, Emily, 8 years old, who is like ready to be a teacher. I know how to spell that, Matthew. Goes over really well in my house. I'm also a Google certified teacher. So I got to attend the Google Teacher Academy this past summer in Chicago, which was pretty awesome. Great learning experience and networking for me. I bring this up mostly not to toot my own horn, but to say we need more Canadians. I love these days. I learned so much. But there is something about understanding the Canadian perspective, about understanding how, boards work in Canada, and particularly in Ontario, and that we don't answer to the Common Core standards. We have a curriculum that we talk to, and just understanding some of that stuff a little bit. So I really encourage you to apply, try, get any of that training that you can get. And also, I've started on Google+, if you're on Google+, a Canadian educators community. And this is across Canada. I'm really looking to build that network of Canadians using Google Apps for Education. I actually got to spend Monday in the Google offices in Toronto. And when we said how big we were, they were like, oh, wait, you mean you're right behind New York and Chicago, and then, yeah, right. Oh, you guys are a little bit important. And in Ontario, all of our boards are big for the most part. So we're a little on, so let's get together. I do want to just explain that this is not a how-to session. In an hour, we are not doing how-to. This is a session about inspiration. This is an idea. I'm hoping that something sparks in you and you go away and you're ready to do something. And I have a little story about that here. So I use this slide because how do we do learning goals and success criteria like this? I don't know who you are. I don't know who's in the room. How can I possibly determine the learning goals and help you meet them? So I can only judge the success of my work potentially through your work. So I say this presentation is successful if people are sitting on the floor. No. That if you walk away and you try just one new thing this week, next week with your students, if you try one thing, this has been successful. And then to me, success plus is if you pay it forward. If you go out and you share what you did, and you try it with someone else potentially, or you tweet it out, or you share it back, or you get a colleague to try it with you. Now we've got, now we have success plus. Part of what I want to share with you a little bit is that while we're in a Google presentation here and you're seeing what's happening up here on the screen, I learn as much in presentations than when I'm sitting there with the conversation that's happening in the background, whether it's on Twitter or right within the presentation itself, as I do from listening to the presenter. So what I've done off in the space of the page here, just to show you, if you can kind of see it, it's over here, kind of buried. But I use the space off the slide to share information. And so these are little tweetable moments. Potentially you just want to copy and paste them. You don't want to even think up your own tweet. Some of you are like, I just lurk on Twitter, I retweet, I don't even know what it is, but I don't know where to start. So you can just take these tweets. But this one, when Ken was speaking this morning and he was talking about that magical moment, I was like, that's what it is. What's your magic moment from this weekend? What is it? nail down one thing, because there's so much happening here. But pick one, own it, and share it. So tweet it out there, and tell Ken too. This is what I'm going to do. Commit to it. And so the story I want to tell you about that, and I think half of you are probably in the room because of this story, is that I spoke at ECHO in the fall, and Roland, this teacher here, came to my session. He said everything was over my head except that one slide, which was to try something. Okay, that was a learning experience. But he presented yesterday. How many of you were in his session? Yeah, because he was like, go to Julie's session. So let me tell you what happened there. So I was at ECHO. Oh, my slides are out of order. But I was at ECHO and doing a presentation similar to this one, and I put that challenge out there. So then I said, oh, it's going backwards. My animations are all backwards. Look at that. Okay. Let me just talk about this then. So what Roland did is afterwards he tweeted me to say, oh, I did it. I went into my class and I did this. And he tweeted it out there. Then he wrote about it. He put it out there publicly for me to see, for others to see. And in doing that, a teacher responded, and when I saw that, that's actually a teacher at my school board who responded to the no connection, no knowing that this is, so that was kind of neat. Then the York Catholic District School Board was looking for a keynote speaker for their Google Day, and he's like, well, why don't you go try Julie? Next thing you know, I'm keynote speaking at a board day, which was unexpected. And then after that, he got Google Glass in his classroom by doing all of this. And then he came and he presented at this conference yesterday, and then Scott down here blog posted about that. That's so out of my control. That is you guys taking ownership on this and making one magical moment started. His story that he shared with me is I just went and said, okay, we're going to try Google Docs with my students. They had to do it on paper first, but I'll let them put it on a Google Doc. And then he ended up with Google Glass. How many of you have had Google Glass in your classroom in here? Not me. Not one of us. So that's my story. So tweet it out, share it, do it. Okay, so I have a challenge for you as well. This is a session about inquiry, which is really about asking questions. So I want you to post at least one question during this session today. One good question about anything. Something I talk about me personally, about Scott, about school boards, about student learning, anything. Use the tools within the presentation. Go to insert a comment, post your question, or share it on Twitter, or use Post-it notes. And I did actually bring Post-it notes, but in the chaos of setting up, I forgot to put Post-it notes out. But write it down on a piece of paper even. But develop a question. Let's model it. Let's try it. Let's see who's got some really good questions. Again, just using that space outside. So on some of the slides, I've posted some questions for you to consider. Feel free to go in and answer those questions, add to them, augment what I've done. Make it so much bigger than what I'm doing here. All right, so inquiry process. There are so many different frameworks for inquiry out there. There are just, I don't know. This is the new inquiry process, new in the sense that in the revised Ontario Social Studies curriculum, on page 23, they have an inquiry process. I like that it's gears, because it means it's not in a particular order. It means they're all connected and they come back to each other. The one in the middle is about formulating questions. So when I found out I was on day 2 after lunch, I knew you guys were going to be pretty full, and maybe I didn't want to repeat a lot of stuff you might have already heard. So I changed this a little bit. Originally I was going to go through all the different cogs of the inquiry process, but we can't, it's really hard to do that in an hour. So I'm going to focus this one a little bit more just on doing the questioning part, because to me that's what makes all the rest of it work anyways. The inquiry process that I've worked with for years and I'm most comfortable with is from the Ontario Library Association, and that is, this is their wheel. So there's exploring, investigating, processing, creating, but again, the crux of it all is about questioning. The Everything on the slide, I try to link wherever I possibly can. So that's a link. So if you want to go out and see something, feel free to actually go and click on those links to have access to those other resources, and tweet them out. As individual, people don't have time to go back through a whole presentation, but this is a great inquiry process to follow. So what is this really about? What's inquiry about? It's about inspiration, finding something to inspire students, you, to ask questions. I'm hoping I'm doing that a little bit here. Then we're going into inquiry, actually going and posing those questions. What do we want to find out? And then it's innovation. Okay, so what? We've got questions. So what? What are we going to do with them? And then it's about iteration. Okay, so we tried that. Now we've got to fix it. We got to go back and revisit our questions, or that didn't work, so we got to research some more, or we have to go back and try that again. So this is what inquiry, to me, is about. So my question to you is, how are you fostering an environment of inquiry with your students? I'm looking at your watch. What time do I have until? Okay. Am I going too fast? No. Okay. Good. I'm going to take a sip of water then. I'll let you think about that for a second. Okay. So how are you? And I don't necessarily even just mean how are you teaching the inquiry process. How are you just allowing for an environment of inquiry? Are you allowing your students to ask questions, or are you giving them such prescribed tasks that they're just going, yep, done, check, yep, done, check. And you're not allowing for them to ask those questions and build their excitement around a particular topic. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how you can easily bring inquiry into the classroom. And then we're going to go a little bit deeper and build it. Because everyone in here is in a different place in their comfort with Google and in their comfort with technology, with their access to technology, and with their comfort around inquiry. So using Google Draw, I made a trading card template. And I modeled it using BitStrips for Schools. Love that tool. Just a little avatar there. So about me, who I am. I identified some of my strengths and some of my accomplishments, and then I went and found somebody else to endorse me, kind of like LinkedIn, right? We can talk about endorsements and what kind of endorsement you might want to give somebody and write the right language. And then what I did is when I have all the students' trading cards done, then I did this typical, start of the year bingo activity, where you kind of go find someone in the room who has, or who plays lacrosse. Well, I pulled that off of those cards because I know somebody in the room does. Now, I did this. I thought this was brilliant. Simple but brilliant. And then I saw somebody else do it even better, and that was Sylvia Duckworth, who's sitting down there on the floor. So before we came down to the summit, she asked all the presenters to give a quirky fact about themselves. We all gave funny things. And then she put it into a Google form, and she took those answers, and she made it a Google form. So then she said, so which presenter has a twin sister? And you're like, okay, I'm going to try and guess. And she's like, nope, try again, and gave a clue. And then if you got it right, it was like, yay, success, and a picture of the presenter. We come from all over. I'm like, oh, that's Michelle. I didn't know that was Michelle. So she took it even and made it interactive, but I felt like she honored what I had shared, that I love my extra large Tim Hortons coffee every morning, and if I don't get it, I'm not very happy. But at the same time, I got to know the other presenters pretty quickly, and I felt I knew something special about them that you don't know, like the fact that Ken Sheldon has been a professional model for 20 years. So, some of that kind of stuff is interesting. Okay, let's go a little bit deeper. Again, Google Draw. And this actually came from, there is a fantastic website. It's called the Right Question Institute. And they talk about how to make questioning really easy, like 5 steps to how to do it. And this was recommended by a colleague of mine, and I went and visited. Such a great site. So this idea actually came off of their site. And there's a whole blog post about it. But what they did is they took like this cover of Rolling Stone magazine, and this was after the bombings in Boston City, after the marathons that were happening there, and just posted it up there. And the students are like, just ask questions. Just ask your questions. And there's all kinds of things they thought about, like, are we really making him a celebrity? Why would they put him on the cover? And what does that impact? We walked into the room earlier, and I don't know where she's gone now, but we looked up at, look at those pictures up there. Like, we walked in, they were doing a good, I'm like, oh my goodness. I mean, think of it, just what questions do you have? And being able to, the nice thing about putting this onto a Google Doc is that you can insert, comment, ask your questions. Build on someone else's question, make their question better, ask it a different way. Or you can put them in groups, and each group has to go, or maybe you have 5 different covers of magazines, or 5 different images from the same event. And you just build on each other, you build in the collaborative nature. At the same time, when the technology fails, as it will, you still know what you were going to do. Right? You can still have a conversation about, you're still asking questions. We get out chart paper and Post-it notes instead. Your lesson isn't trash, because you know what you were going to do. But this just means that you've got maybe some of those students. I had a class once that I was teaching, and nobody ever put up their hands ever. They all got 95s, like they were smart, but no one ever wanted to put up their hand. If I allowed them to write out their answers, oh, I got pages. This is a grade 8 core English class. It was the strangest class I've ever had. They just needed, they were too shy to share it in front of a group of people. Oh, it might be wrong. Someone might think that my answer is wrong. Okay, post it then. So these were some of the questions that these students came up with. And I took this from this blog post. I didn't actually do this one. I just really liked it. Why did they make him look like a celebrity? What was the date and location of the, well, why was the date and location of the bombing significant to him? What did his family do to fail him? Ooh, you know. Rolling Stone's impact on that, the media aspect of it. A little simpler again here. Going into a Google form, embedding a video or an image into a Google form, and then this little video is about a 10-minute journey of Canada and the provinces of Canada. Now, before I ask you to go and pick out of a hat which province you're going to research, you know, which ones interested you? And why? And do you already have some questions? And now, with the back-end spreadsheet form, I can say, oh, look, Matthew picked, I don't know, the one with the least amount of research, and I can go and have a conversation with them. Or I might say, pick your top 2 and why. But at least get them excited before they have to pick the topic that they're going to research. There are some great graphic organizers out there, already exists in worksheets and Blackline Masters and stuff like that. And I know we're this no worksheet age that has come out in this, and that's not quite what we mean. Graphic organizers are really useful and really helpful, but can we make them a little bit more collaborative? And so I'm just going to go bigger, just so you get a sense of what this is. So in Google Draw, you know, you watch something, you watch a video, you read a topic, you read a little article, and, you know, I wonder, questions I have, something new I discovered, I didn't know that. But because it's on a collaborative document, you can share it the same way as everybody else. So Matthews is blank again, right? Oh, my poor son. I'm not showing him this Google Hangout. But if the teacher shared it with me and said, you know what, this is what he got done, could you help them finish this over the weekend? I can do that. Or even better, the teacher and I know that Matthew tends not to get things done. If she has he puts all his work in a folder that is shared with me, I can just go in and check it. Because if she was away on Friday and didn't check his agenda and the supply teacher didn't know that he was supposed to write this stuff down, and I say, Matthew, what do you have to do this weekend? And I get, I don't know. I can at least go check in the folder and just see what's in there. I got this idea from, she's a Canadian author, Barbara Greenfield, I want to say. It was a long, long time ago. This is one of my favorite activities, though. This is the junk drawer. And I just brought in a junk drawer from home, put it on the table, and said, pick something, and we're going to research it. Now, you can stack a junk drawer. Like, well, be careful what you leave in there, too. But you can stack it. Like, okay, you know what? I know we want a Canadian flavor here or something, so you throw in things. I did this with a grade 8 class, and one boy picked one of those paperclip things. He picked it, and then I said, okay, now you're going to have to research that. He was like, are you kidding me? I said, let's brainstorm. What questions do you have about it? So how was it manufactured? What's its purpose? What's its history? It ended up being the best research in that class. There was a whole website on those things. Who knew? And he was like, oh, that was kind of interesting. So based on my questions that I generated, I found out all kinds of information. Have kids make a junk drawer about themselves.
You need to see that.
What?
The message from Roland, who we were talking about.
Oh, Roland's on the Hangout with us right now.
His little guy's sick.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So this template is just a see, think, wonder template. And it's about what do you see, what are you thinking, what are you wondering about. So just a little bit, again, a template that might go with something like this. Here's your inspiration, and then here's your organization. How many of you learned for the first time that you could search Google by images this weekend? Okay, so you can search Google by images if you didn't know that. So, okay, we're going to study Canadian artists, right? Okay, pick out of the hat. Let me tell you, here's a list of Canadian artists. I'll tell you a little bit about them and then pick the one you're interested in. Well, what about going to Google, searching Canadian artists, and now you've got all these images. So now what you can do is, oh, this one's nice. I like this one. Visually appealing. Oh, kind of what art is about. This one speaks to me. If you click that and drag it up into the search box, you will get, see if I did it. Oh, yes. Okay, so you will get who the artist is, a little biography about them, and other images by them, some websites about them. Oh, that's the artist I would like to research. Okay, you know what? I kind of really like, anyone know who this is? Ted Harrison. Oh, that one's appealing, so I'm going to go and do that. So I'm searching by what art is really about, rather than a name on a page. There's a fun one for you to research and check out and try. It's so easy. Drag. You have to be in Google Images. So you have to be actually in the image, and then just drag up the picture, drop it into the search box. Okay, we're talking about images and photos. One's up here on the wall. Look, are those prime ministers or are they U.S. presidents? Oh, I bet this is a U.S. history class. Okay. Oh, but there's the Queen is back there too. All right. So here's the inspiration, and then here's the organization. So how do we make questions out of that inspiration? How do we turn those into inquiry questions? This is a Q matrix. How many of you have seen a Q matrix before? Okay. On a Google Draw. Okay, so before you leave today, every one of you is going to pick a box and put a question in there as your exit card. As you walk out the door, go put your question on the Q matrix. And I might have this online, or my computer technology dies, but I have a poster of this in my classroom now. I'm just using Post-it notes instead. But it's just about inspiration, organization, how you get them making questions. The other one that I really like is this one, and it's 3-level questioning. So what this is about is the question is about on the line, what you're seeing, and then level 2 is between the lines, and then level 3 is beyond the lines. So go back to an image. Okay, who is this? What's the date on this? Why is this happening? You know, between the lines is, I wonder what they're thinking. I wonder what this conversation is about. I wonder how we got into this situation. And and then beyond that might be, oh, I saw this image over here, or there's a. So you're connecting. So it's walking, scaffolding students through the different questioning levels. I'm taking another sip of water. I'm looking at your watch. You have half an hour left. Is that right?
Yeah.
Am I still not going too fast? Am I still okay? Yeah.
Do you take some of those questions and make maker charts around your classroom so you can rerun the technology?
Absolutely.
Yeah, whatever you can do. And I'm going to direct you back to Roland's blog, which is one of the links that's out there, because what Roland did extremely well that I don't do so well is document the process. So he always started with the learning goals and the success criteria and then the activity. It was all anchored in that. He knew what his purpose was on that day, and then he brought in the technology. And that's, you know, that's what really matters. And that's what I kind of say when the technology fails. It's because I'm still grounded in what I'm teaching. So he has lots of examples of that on his blog, starting from just using a Google Doc, forms, presentations. All right, Google Glass, here we go. So, so he documents that really well. And I wish I had done that. We were asked to comment on our learning this weekend, and that's one that I realize I have to do more. I have to document the process for others to read more, or for me to reflect on as well. So, but absolutely, anchor charts. How many of you like? And anchor charts are on paper often too, right? Mm-hmm. But what I like is if I can take a photo of the anchor chart and the success criteria on my phone, and then just post it into Google Drive. Students have access to those anchor charts and success criteria outside of the four walls of my classroom. They have to go down to the special ed resource room. They have access to it. The other teacher can see it. Maybe I do have a really challenging parent who's an instruction leader in the teaching, learning with technology department. But the principal knows that I'm doing this, and they're like, well, have you looked at what? Oh, right. You know, or I can say, Matthew, to go check the learning goals and success criteria first. Let's pull them up as we work on this at home. Or the French teacher, whatever. So document those. I work with a lot of teachers who share their learning in other ways because I don't have a classroom directly. And I often say to them, oh, have you got a picture of that? Oh, I forgot to do that. But it's those examples that make a difference. It's what you actually did. And that's why I say share back, because it's not my idea up here. It's what you do that's the inspiration, not this. All right, so this is an example of, these are grade 6 teachers who work with Google Presentation in their math classroom religiously. And so what they do is they start with, at the beginning of their presentation, they start with a really rich math question, sometimes an EQAO question, sometimes just another really rich math question, and they're very strong math teachers, have done a lot of work in math. And then they post the question on a slide, and then they have the students duplicate the slide, so they each have their own copy of the question, or maybe in pairs, and then the students go on to the slide to solve the math and show their work. And then the teacher goes in and offers feedback, descriptive feedback, onto their slides, and sometimes points them in the direction of other students' work. You know, you haven't quite got this. Go look at Julie's slide 17 and see if that helps you out. Or maybe we go back as a whole after. Let's look at all the different math strategies we used or that were used to solve this math problem. Now we just consolidated the learning. Now we have an anchor chart. Right, let's go look at how we solved this problem. And they co-construct the learning goals and success criteria on the first slide. Take that one step further. If you do this, I don't mean this for every single thing that you do, but rich math problem. If you did one of these every 2 weeks, and so after 3 months, you might have 6 or 7 examples of where you've done this. Now you tell the students, go find your very first one on this unit, and now go find your very last slide on this unit, import those into your own presentation, and make that your e-portfolio of math. And now I can see growth over time and have them reflect on their learning from the beginning until the end. And you know what? Let's share that with your parents for parent interview. So because you can do all of that with Google, you know we have these portfolios that we have to do for the Ontario government. How many of you know have heard about those portfolios? Oh, okay, they're coming. So student portfolios are coming. I don't know if I left in the slide or not. In terms of, and secondary have had to do it for a while now, and they are going to have to be electronic. And I do like that we've been doing portfolios of student learning for some time. But you remember that how many of you are old as I am and remember the benchmark days? Like those benchmark folders, 3 that you had to resort and put into boxes, and there were video. Oh my gosh! So we have to kind of. I'm really worried that we're going back to these paper portfolios that we have to pass on to the next teacher and pass on to the. An e-portfolio of learning needs to be with the student. So how do we do that? Google makes it really easy. Even if they just, you have a Google presentation that's your e-portfolio, and it's photos of work, comments with reflections, you at least have something to start with that can be shared.
People also put things that aren't known. They put their favorite or something that you did built on. You go into Google Draw, bring in that image to Google Draw, and then write some reflection and get feedback from other students.
Absolutely. So the question was basically about integrating the different tools. So can you bring an image into Google Draw, then go into the commenting features and reflect on it, have other students give feedback and reflect on that? Absolutely. And that's the power of Google and its integration. There's probably a Web 2.0 tool that you can use for every one of these. And, you know, you could do mind mapping. There's great Web 2.0 tools for mind mapping. But if you do mind mapping in Google Draw, then you have that power of importing from your Google Drive, the sharing features, the commenting features, and you're not teaching yet another tool. So the less time we have to learn on teaching the tool, and that's more for ourselves than our students, by the way, then the more powerful that you can spend more time on the teaching and the learning than on the tool. Oh, yay, a chair! Yay! So I'm gonna. This is a geeky moment here, which I discovered, which was kind of new. How many of you in your Google Apps domain have Gmail set up and associated and running with it? Okay. And some of you do not? Okay, so this only works if your Google Docs are associated with an email. So in TDSB, our Google Docs domain for teachers is associated with their Outlook. For students, it's not turned on at all. Makes it really fun. In TDSB? Or in Upper Grand, right.
Kids can. Yeah.
So in Upper Grand you can, but in different domains, different things are turned on. But when you go to insert a comment, what happens in any doc is the owner of that document gets an email notification that there has been a comment added to the presentation if it's associated with email. But sometimes I'm the owner of the document, I'm the teacher, I don't necessarily want the comments. This might be a group activity. So I want the feedback to go to different group members individually. So if you just put a plus in front of their email address, it will send that comment notification directly to that person through their email. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you go ahead and try it. Don't send me 100 emails. But and then as you have a common group, they'll just start to appear in a list. There'll be like 5 or 6 commonly used ones, and so you don't have to even type out the whole email address every time. But this becomes really powerful when you're looking at group work and group feedback, because you need more than just the owner of the document to see that sometimes. I'm a little pretty busy, so don't forget, go check the Google Doc that I put some feedback in there. I can target, I'll pick on Emily this time, I can target Emily and say, Emily, you haven't done your work in this doc yet. Yes?
Does it reference the particular document you're working on, or does it just say you have it?
It does, with a link directly back into the document.
Does the
Yes?
document already have to be shared with that person?
No, but if you haven't shared it with that person, when they try to click on the link, they'll get denied. Oh, am I wrong?
I got it from a good comment.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you got to play with that one a little bit. I don't know. I thought I knew the answer to that. Might be wrong. Good inquiry question. Okay. What would you type into YouTube? So this is just, I think, this is interesting, and it makes it a pretty exciting and even more powerful tool. You can target who you want people to see and read and that type of thing. I think commenting is a really powerful tool within Google Docs. So if you haven't been using that, that might be something you take a bit of time to explore and how you might use that. I love that comments sit on the side and not in the work. It gets, you know, here's when you mark up an essay. You've got all the red grammar spelling marks. So we fix all that, and we miss the good. Okay, let's talk about structure. This needs more clarification. Can you go back and look at the learning goals and success criteria for this piece of writing? And it puts the teacher on the side, or peers on the side, and not in it. It makes the student more accountable to their work, instead of, oh, I'm just going to fix all these mistakes that the teacher addressed, and I didn't learn anything from that, because I didn't actually have to do it. Instead of, okay, again, you need to have a capital letter after a period. Go check. I found 25. How many did you find? Right? Instead of red, red, red. All right.
Kids love it because they don't have to wait for you to read to edit their paper. You know, they love that you just gave them comments because you could do it the morning before or whatever.
Yeah.
They're not waiting in line for whatever it is, your script.
Your pile of marking that's up to here, and you're not getting. And can I have my test back? Or where's this? Or I need that? Or this is about what Google Docs and the suite of tools does, I think, is makes things a little bit more efficient. I know that it can also seem like it adds more work, and certainly at the beginning, until you know and understand the tools, it can feel that way. So that's why you pick docs and comments, and just focus on that. But as you become more efficient and then things get faster. One of my favorite learning strategies is an anticipation guide. Has anyone used an anticipation guide in their class before? They're just really open-ended questions. So in introducing something, I might ask a question like, a book can change the world the way you see the world. Best friends should protect each other at all times. Families generally have a member's best interests in mind. Love is a more powerful emotion than hate. Agree or disagree? And so an anticipation guide generates interest. Think about that last statement before you introduce Romeo and Juliet. And then have them, well, explain why. Why did you pick that you agreed it was more powerful emotion than hate? And now we're going to read Romeo and Juliet, and now let's go back to this anticipation guide and answer it again. Do you still feel the same way? And what I like about a form for doing this, rather than, I've done it like on a line, agree, disagree, go stand up. I always have people that stand in the middle. Well, I can't make up my mind. I'm going to straddle the line. A form makes you pick. You have to pick agree or disagree. And it's a record, too, of what you said and why you said it. And then you can go back and revisit it later. I've also done anticipation guides with math statements. Like, say you're teaching fractions. 1/4 is greater than 0.75. Agree or disagree? Right, so it's just that's a good diagnostic. I think I've heard Maps Engine Lite mentioned a couple of times. This is a really powerful and easy tool, but in terms of that inspiration, I'm not a big lover of geography. I didn't do so well in geography, but some people really are. They're passionate about geography. And so don't forget, maps can be inspirational. And so in that Prime Minister report that Matthew had to do, he did have to draw a map of Arthur Meehan's journey to Ottawa. It's kind of neat. That's actually, well, that's kind of interesting. He was supposed to have to hand draw the map. And I thought, ooh, no, that's not going to work for Matthew. So I said, hey, Matthew, look at this. So what you do is you just type in the addresses and it plots it for you. And then if you hover over the different marks, it would actually come up and say, look, born in Anderson, Ontario in 1874. And you can put all kinds of different things in there. You could add lines. You could add comments. You can share it. Oh, I think you can add comments.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you can share it too, and you can embed it. So we actually do this with our teachers that are our lead instructional teachers. We have them all mapped out across Toronto, and that's shared. And so if you want to find a digital lead technology teacher, you look in your area, hover over, there's their name, there's their email, and you can contact them directly. So there's lots of great uses for maps, and easy to use. Back to poor Arthur Meehan. God. See, you never knew when you walked in this room you were going to learn a little bit about Canadian history, did you? So one of the check marks on Matthew's project was a table of contents. And I do think table of contents are powerful. When you look at it in reading nonfiction and what you need in order to read nonfiction well and how are books organized and that type of thing, a table of contents is important. There is a built-in feature in Google Docs that's table of contents. So if you label something as a heading and then insert a table of contents, it makes the table of contents for you. Far more powerful to talk about, well, what should we include in the table of contents? What's the difference between a title and a subtitle? Does that help direct you to where you should go in the book? What if I've got a class of primary students and we're looking at nonfiction writing, and I want to look at, we're talking about table of contents. Well, let's build one together. What should we include? You know, we're researching animals. What could we include? So you do it on a smartboard or whatever, and you do it together. And it's like, well, we don't like that anymore. Change it. And then you just refresh it, and it refreshes the table of contents. It just takes out that, let's write it down, edit it. That was your rough draft. Okay, draft number 2. Okay, draft number 3, your final draft. Yeah, there's still mistakes in it, but we'll take it at this point because we've done it 4 times. So the embedded tools, as you get to know them, make things more easier. Have you guys explored add-ons yet? A little bit. So there's an add-on that has now become my favorite. It's the Twitter Curator. How many of you in here are on Twitter? Okay. So Twitter, after Google, Twitter is my next favorite tool. And it has become my professional learning network. I started 4 years ago, and it's changed almost everything, how I research everything. I start with Twitter very often. And I know some of you are like, I don't care that you ate a burger for dinner last night. But if you join it as a professional learning network, it's very different. But the Twitter Curator, so when you have that as an add-on in your doc, in the add-on, Twitter Curator, launch Twitter Curator. And then so if I search the hashtag GAF Summit, it's going to pull up the tweets from the GAF Summit. You're just going to click on them, and they're going to put it in the doc as a link. So you're kind of curating your resources. Okay, so now if I'm a student who has researched and found information through Twitter, curating my resources through Twitter. Okay, so it's just a way of, and then you've got a link to it, and you know, I can go back and find it again. So that's an add-on that, and those have really just come out recently, and I really, really like that one. Add-ons do have to be enabled in your domain. They were in mine, magically. I think they just didn't know not to enable them, so I'm not telling them, don't tweet that. So it was on. Yay! Co-constructing knowledge. So I know you're all busy typing and taking notes. So you're probably not putting information on my presentation as we're talking. Has anyone inserted a comment yet? Yay! Okay, you're all going to go home and do it? Okay. But with as this becomes more, lots of people are in Twitter, for sure. I know, I can feel my phone buzzing. But as you get more comfortable with this, the ability to insert comments as a presentation is happening becomes really powerful. So I'm now doing a presentation on my Canadian artist for all of you. And I was actually in a school last week, and the teacher said, oh, we're doing Canadian artists. And I said, well, on PowerPoint. I'm like, oh. He's like, well, I could put in a Google presentation. I was like, yes, what's that first thing on the SAMR model? Substitution. Okay, we got a plus and minus. We're in substitution. That was good. But then I said, what are your students doing while the presenter's presenting? And he's like, they are listening really well. I said, well, you know, in Google presentations, if you're going to make that what's it called? Substitution, then now bump it up a little bit. Every student must post at least 2 questions to the presenter during the presentation. And then the presenter has to go back and answer each question afterwards. So maybe they need to research a little bit more. Go back to those, you know, make sure, and what kind of questions do you want? Do you want to ask extending questions, or do you want to ask clarification questions? Do you want to give feedback on presentation style? What's your rubric? What are you marking? What are you looking for? Get the students involved in the presentation itself. And then that way they're more engaged in the actual presentation. You could have them decide what they need to comment on. Look at the success criteria. What should we be reflecting on during this presentation? You tell me. Okay. A little bit deeper. I don't know if you can see this image, but basically, I don't, oh my gosh, I got this off of Facebook. I looked everywhere for the actual original source and I can't find it, but I think I'll be forgiven. This is the teacher's anti-cheat technique. And they've got all the students' names and all their phones. And the responses were hilarious. Oh, I'm so going to do that. That's so great. I was looking at it going, are you crazy? You're all begging for technology in your classrooms, and you just took it out of their hands, and you put it away. And I thought, if you're doing that, you're not asking the right questions. Make them use their phones. Make them find out the answers to stuff. Okay, maybe in the middle of exam you might not want to have it up there. I get that. But, you know, make them find out something. And I was talking about this in the keynote this morning with my friend Karen, who I've taught with for years, who's my absolute mentor in teaching, and she said, this is one of the questions that they just asked. What is wrong with technology if we can lose a plane? Good question. Let's go find out. Well, you don't know what I'm talking about? But I mean, as students, I go, okay, well, lost plane, search it. When was it? What was the date of that lost plane? Does anyone remember? I can't remember. Look it up. So you get them, pull out their phone, look it up, find it out. What airline was it again? I saw something about an albino pilot. I'm like, I showed my husband, look, he's like, I don't think that's real. So now we have a whole conversation about, was this like a joke now, or was that real? Make them pull out their phones to research. Go find it out. Now, I got some of this inspiration from at the ECHO conference, and it was Honeycutt who spoke, Kevin Honeycutt.
Oh, yeah.
He was brilliant, but he talked about that, and that's kind of where this idea got launched from. But he really set up in doing that. He had very strong classroom management rules and routines and norms, and he knew when to shut it down, because he let them use their phones, but he also knew that if they abused it, they wouldn't get to use their phones. And he was very strong in that. And he had the time to use them and the time to put them away. So that was definitely set up in his style. But he did these teachable stories that he knew a lot about, and he could direct those questions and have them researched. What source was that? Find me another source. That's not a reliable source. Is that a reliable source? Find me a second person who can confirm that. Find me an image that goes with that. So he just threw it out to them, and just he'd do it when they were like this. He's like, okay, let's go. We're gonna, and it would just practice those questions. MediaNet, MediaSmart, the MediaSmart site just conducted a national study, K-12, on online activities, 4 to 12 online activities. This was one of the pieces of information that came out. You know, that 30% of students, grades 4 to 6, have a Facebook account, even though the terms of service say you need to be 13. There's inspiration. There's questions you can generate from that, conversations that you can have. I love this book. It's old. It's the Kids' Book of Questions, but it asks questions like this. What was the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to you? Are you embarrassed now by the same things that used to embarrass you? And I would say, okay, turn that into a digital citizenship question. What is the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to you online? Right? Digital citizenship is not a unit of study. It's got to be embedded in almost everything that you do. They are living online. My daughter texts me. She's 8. Right? She said, Mom, can you post this picture on Facebook for me? I want feedback. Like, so they know. So turn your, okay, and this is Honeycutt's, I'm stealing it from him, but turn your The Outsider's novel study. What if they had cell phones? How would it have been different if those events had happened in 2014? Like, just embed it into what you're doing, or get them to, even better. What's your digital footprint? Why do I have a picture of footprints in concrete rather than sand? I might really have a good conversation with students about that. I was going to model the researching tool here. How many of you have seen the research tool embedded in Google Docs? Okay, so this is where I would model this for students. So if you go to Tools and Research in a Google Doc, it brings the researching tool right into the doc. And if you search, if you don't want to search yourself, search my name, and there's all my pictures. There's who I. So what's your digital footprint? You might do that with students as an activity. If you are in the presentation, I've put the instructions about what to do if you want to try this yourself. Off to the side, select a slide. Oh, that's probably the wrong number. But duplicate it, put your name in. I want you to do it. Okay? So you probably can't do, didn't give you guys editing rights in my presentation. Sorry, there'd be slides missing by now. But so I put the instructions off to the side. You might put success criteria off to the side. When you duplicate a slide, it takes all that with it. I like to change the question from what's your digital footprint to what will be your digital legacy. They're going to have a digital footprint. In fact, today, my husband lost his job about 2 years ago, and he went to career counseling. The first thing they said is, you need an online presence. Get yourself onto LinkedIn. You will not get rehired if you do not have an online presence. Their employers will Google them. What do you want me to find? My reputation is very much my digital presence. How did you guys know to come to this session? Why did you choose it? Okay, my description was not that brilliant. There was something that brought you here. Maybe it was someone else's recommendation, but there was something that maybe you Googled me, maybe you saw all my tweets, but there's stuff out there. So what do you want me to find out about you? And I asked this because this is Emily's picture from the Olympics. She posted it and said, Mom, can you post it because I want feedback on my art. We have a friend who's an artist. We never get to see him, but she wanted him to have a look at that. She's making global connections, and I'm now right there, and she knew the power of social media. She knew, and it was literally within 10 minutes that she had a response to her artwork. E-portfolios, I've sort of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but why not make an e-portfolio template for your district? Maybe you might have primary, junior, and build off of each other, so that makes it easier. There's been lots of examples of that over this weekend, so be looking out for that. So I just returned back to this. Inquiry is really about these things, I think, in my mind. I'm not a researcher, but I think it's about inspiration, sparking that interest. It's about now developing good questions around inquiry. It's about innovation. What are you going to do with it? And it's about iteration. So I'm going to end with this video. Just to get you excited before you walk out the door.
I may be a scientist, but as you can see, I'm only 15. My name is Jackie Andrejka. I have developed a paper sensor for the detection of pancreatic, ovarian, and lung cancer. It's 168 times faster, over 26,000 times less expensive than the current gold standard of detection, and it has close to 100% accuracy at diagnosing these diseases. At the age of 3 is actually when I got interested in science. A close family friend succumbed to pancreatic cancer, so every single day that's my motivation. Once I had come up with this idea in my high school biology class, I emailed 200 different professors. I got 199 rejections, but Dr. Anirban, my HR, gave me the chance, and I finally got the lab space I needed to do the project.
The winner of the $75,000 Gordon E. Moore Award in the category of Medicine
Intel ISAC is the largest K-12 science fair, and it was just insane to be able to win this award at age 15. That's what I really want to change about society is regardless of your age, your gender, your ethnicity, it's just your ideas that count, and to not get lost from the message of helping people.
So my question to you as you leave this room is really about, are you one of the 199 that said no, or are you the one that said yes? Try something, share back, what's your magic moment, have a great last session. Woo! Done.